Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 267 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. We've got Ryan, we've got Adam, we've got a great show here for you tonight as we preview Week 15 in the CFL. We're going to talk through only 3 games on the schedule this week, but we've got some news from a couple teams on bye that we'll chat about first. So lots to talk about here on Thursday night. Adam, I'm a little bit annoyed.
Why is that, Ryan?
You see, we moved the show to Thursday nights, and the past couple of years, the NFL has been very kind to us by putting absolute hot garbage games on Thursday nights. Like in years past, we got the, 9-6 Denver-Seattle game a couple years ago. But tonight they put us up against the Bills and the Dolphins. Don't they know we have the rights to Thursday night?
Absolutely. I mean, we've signed contracts. We've made deals with lawyers. It's definitely our night. I mean, I don't know how the NFL thinks they can get away with this. I mean, I'm sure that our lawyer team will be sending out cease and desist letters anytime now to the NFL. But in case they don't get them, I'm just saying my protest here.
Yeah. The rest of this episode is under protest. No, I mean, the game's wrapping up. It's honestly, I won't spoil what's going on in the game in case anybody is.
Oh, the game's going well. That's all I can say.
Yeah. For which side and who do we care about? Well, maybe stay tuned for the end of the podcast. We'll talk about that then. But we're here to talk CFL football here this week. We'll take your comments and questions in our live chat throughout the night as well. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. You can learn more at GameTimeTV.ca or Facebook.com/GameTimeTVMB. As always, we do want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. I missed asking off the top, how are you doing tonight, Adam?
Actually doing well. Speaking of Treaty 4, got to go and visit out and check out the new Cote Arena here last night. Of course, it's starting to, not quite yet, but it's starting to become senior hockey time again. So, they got a brand new rink over there, so congrats to them. And, boy, what a beautiful looking rink that was. So, been busy with that, been busy farming, then it rained, and now I'm, getting a little of this odds and ends done around the farm that need to get done. So, busy week anytime.
Busy week anytime. Busy week in the sports world, too, with the NFL kicking off this week. We touched on it a little bit there. And, big weekend in the CFL this past weekend. Couple rematch games, couple big games there. And now we've got a fun week with only 6 teams playing. So that'll be interesting as we get into the major storylines, the fantasy picks, and our betting picks for each of the games this week. Also, check out the Discord community. Link is in the episode description. Free to join us over there. We've got live game chats for each CFL game. We've got live chatter during NFL games going on there. Fantasy talk, betting talk, anything, everything you're interested in related to football or really anything. Find it in the Discord community. It's free to join us. Link is in the episode description. And see you there. Before we get into our first game of the week, let's talk about some not bye week blues, but bye week news. Here in week 15, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, and Edmonton are on a bye, and a couple of these teams have some notable things to talk about. First up, let's cover the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who in the Banjo Bowl this weekend lost one Chris Streveler to a season-ending injury. I believe tore 3 ligaments in his leg. Not good at all. You know it's a bad injury if it's taking a guy like Chris Streveler down that hard.
And really, there's only 4 ligaments in the whole knee, and you took 3 of them. Yeah. There's, I can't even list them all because I can't remember it, but there's, only 4 ligaments in the knee, so you take 3 out of the 4. Yikes.
Yeah, that's not great.
No, I'm amazed, not even off, he didn't even go off on the cart. He was carried off. I mean, that's impressive. Yelling like heck. Oh yeah. He was definitely letting the riders and everybody all know about it. But I mean, kudos to Chris Streveler. That's a tough person. He's definitely a warrior, and man, you know what? I always said I don't like the guy as a quarterback. I always call him a running back, and there's a reason behind it. But you know what? He's marketing gold for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The Bombers and the fans all adore him. He's a great guy, probably off the field from what I've heard. You know what? All the best to him. Hopefully he gets better soon. And in the meantime, though, I think there might be a little bit of a quarterback controversy behind one Zach Collaros.
Yeah. Chris Trevor, I feel like his short yardage in the last couple of weeks kind of slipped a little bit. Like, it's not as dominant as he has been before. Of course, it's the one time he tries to throw a pass on a short yardage play that they finally get him to do it, and then he gets injured. Pretty serious. But where Chris Trevor will be missed is he currently accounts for just under 50% of the Bombers' offensive touchdowns this year. They've got 10 quarterback rushing touchdowns. I believe those are all from Chris Trevor. Only 9 passing touchdowns, and Johnny Augustine has 2 on the ground. So there's a distinct hole there. Terry Wilson came in, didn't look too bad. I thought in the limited times he, plunged forward late in that game. But the Bombers obviously see a need here, and with Trevor gone for the season, they need another quarterback, and they're bringing in 2 of them. So to say, I don't believe they've signed contracts yet, but they are at least coming to Winnipeg to compete for at least one of them sticking for a job. And that's quarterback Brian Scott, who was with the Toronto Argonauts, was their 3rd string there and was released after Chad Kelly came back from his suspension. And Jake Dolegala, who you're very familiar with from his time in Ryderville, went over to the Lions to be their backup this year and, was released about the exact same time that Nathan Rourke came back there. So what do you think of these 2 quarterbacks the Bombers have brought in?
Well, I'm not sure much on Brian Scott because I really only seen him the one game when he came in kind of for mop-up duties, essentially. I think it was against Montreal, was it? I can't remember. He did come in for quick mop-up duties, and that's all I seen of him. However, I do know a little bit about Jake Dolegala. First things first, really, really tall quarterback, big quarterback. Good for second and 1, 3rd and 1 plays. I think he'd be great for that. Although he's so tall that he might be one of those that you can catch over top the pile because he can't maybe duck down as much as a Chris Trevor or somebody else. However, he gets a great look at the view in the field and can make some good passes and some very high velocity target passes. His accuracy on the long ball, well, it's a little bit to be seen. But other than that, I think he's actually a pretty good quarterback. I went and I said at the beginning of the season, I thought they should have dropped Mason Fine and kept Jake Dolegala.
Oh, yeah, I remember Mason Fine.
Yeah, where's he? I mean, he didn't even get a chance at this. I mean, you know what? I thought that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were going to bring him in just to go and give Ryan his goal or his fantasy dream.
We talked about this in the Discord this week. Another name thrown around, Taylor Cornelius. If Taylor Cornelius was signed by the Bombers, the jersey would have been ordered 2 seconds later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to see a Dolegala Bomber jersey because, honestly, I like the guy. I thought he was a pretty good rider, and I was kind of disappointed when they let him walk, essentially, and BC picked him up. I always laughed about the all CFL part of his contract that he was possibly going to get. That's another thing to talk about, I guess.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, just to pivot there for a second, let's focus on the important issues, Randy Ambrosi. Let's really nail down the things that need fixing in this league. When the CFL announced this week that they are no longer calling them All-Stars, and it is instead going to be All CFL. It's All CFL, West All CFL, and East All CFL, which to me does not make grammatical sense in the slightest to begin with. And really, there was no explanation for the change. Like, what's wrong with the word star in this context? Are you implying that players that are the best in the league are not stars? Like, I'm confused by all that. I also got me wondering, not that he's ever actually going to hit it, but is that clause for the bonus in Jake Dolegala's contract null and void now because it's if he is named a West Division All-Star and that's no longer a thing?
Well, I think his contract is null and void at the moment that BC sent him on the road. But
well, yeah.
But anyways, any of the other guys, yeah, that could be interesting. That are probably got that in their contract if they are a CFL West Division CFL or all CFL player. The only thing I could think of this is if you have a first team all CFL team and a second team all CFL team, fair enough. But usually you do that for all American, all Canadian, that kind of thing. You do that for, not for the whole league. Otherwise, it's all-star.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is
all-star,
not the first time we have had problems with all-star lists in the CFL. Was it last year or the year before where we got a list and then they said, oh, that was the fake list. Here's the real one.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it never changed CFL. It just makes us look so much greater.
I love it. But yeah, Jake Dolegala, Brian Scott. So Jake Dolegala, 27 years old, will be turning 28 in October, so in a couple of weeks. Brian Scott just turned 29. So roughly, pretty close to the same age, 1 year age difference. I've never been super high on Dolegala. I did think he showed some promise in some of his games down the stretch last year with the Riders. 11 touchdowns to 9 interceptions last year for him. That's positive, but you got to get some of those interceptions down. I think he's probably the better short yardage guy. Dolegala, being 6'7", you just lay down and you get the first down basically. So I think he's probably is the better option for short yardage in the short term. Brian Scott, on the other hand, we haven't seen him much in the CFL. I pulled up his Wikipedia page where looked like he had some pretty good stats in college. 27 touchdowns to 5 picks in 2016, 22 touchdowns to 6 picks in 2015. Was the third overall pick of the USFL draft. So just behind, USFL legend, first overall pick Shea Patterson, only 2 picks back of him. And was actually leading the league in passing yards and touchdowns before he got, I think, injured there. So, Brian Scott's a guy, I don't know what to make of him because I was so high on Cam Dukes coming into this year after his performance in that one game last year in the Argos system that I thought he was going to run Kelly out of a job where Kelly wasn't going to come back and get his job because Dukes was going to play so well. That definitely did not happen. Scott looked good in a relief opportunity, sure, but how much, can you rely on that? The one thing I will say that I have heard over social media is Brian Scott is a fantastic community and locker room guy, which is great. And I think he fits that Mike O'Shea system, would fit it really well. And it makes it even more of a travesty that he was let go when, great locker room guys let go when, the Chad Kelly is brought back into the locker room. I think that sucked, plain and simple. So I think he maybe, give him a shot, see what he can do, see what either of these guys can do. My overall take on this is actually that, I'm never going to wish an injury on a guy, and it sucks to see a guy like Chris Streveler get injured because he does try so hard and puts it all on the line out there. This might be one of the better things that could happen for the future of the Bombers, though. Chris Streveler is never the long-term answer for this football team, and I've said that for the past couple of weeks, and I stand by that. If he's not your long-term answer, is Terry Wilson? Maybe. Is Zach Collaros the long-term answer? No, he's arguably maybe not even the answer right now. And is only getting older and maybe has a year or two left in him in contract-wise and just time in the CFL. So you need an option for the future. So the fact that they brought in not one but 2 guys to compete for that right now that could slide in if needed and finish off this year and be an option for the future, I love it.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. And Chris Streveler, we all have seen before. He just doesn't have an arm to really run on in a CFL league, which throws the ball quite a bit. And especially with deep balls and long throws, it just wasn't going to work. But I know that they're very high, that the Bombers are very high in Terry Wilson. He looked okay running the football, but he wasn't Chris Streveler. I mean, you could easily pick that out. But this is great for the Bombers. You're right. They get the opportunity to go and try to figure out who might be the next guy down the road, because that Zach Collaros' time is, don't want to say limited because you never know.
It is.
We're pretty sure it is. I mean, you've seen the play this year. I mean, he's still considered for, honestly, right now, I don't even know who you consider for MOP of the league. And I mean, this has been a little bit of a debate kind of in the media side of things. Who's the MOP right now?
Oh, God.
Zach Collaros cannot be the MOP this year. Seriously. But no, this is good for the Bombers. They get to go and start analyzing quarterbacks a little bit early. Zach Collaros is still at the center and behind for the games. And then you get to evaluate Dolegala and Scott. And it's a bye week, so it's the best week it could possibly. If there's ever a good week for an injury, this is a good week for an injury because you can evaluate a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope right now that a certain team in green has 15 offensive linemen out there and they're doing the same thing and evaluating, because we probably don't need about 5 or 6 more after the next week.
I'm trying to find the updated MOP odds right now, and I'm struggling to find that. I'm not able to look on I can't load it on some of these sites, so I don't have them. But I did see that Zach Collaros was pretty high up in the list. Here we go. I found it on DraftKings, I believe. Right now, Cody Fajardo is the only one in minus odds to be the MOP, and I would agree. He's probably the front runner. Nathan Rourke is next. William Stanback, Drew Brown. We can go on and on the list, but who would have thought that we'd be talking about William Stanback being number 3 in the odds for the MOP race? It's wide open. Anybody could, and it'll still be an interesting debate going down the stretch. One of the names that actually was high on some of these lists for MOP, crazy enough, is one Trey Ford over in the Edmonton Elks, who has had the up and down season of not getting a chance to play. McLeod Bethel-Thompson goes 0-6, 0-7. Finally, Trey Ford comes in. The Elks start winning. Amazing. They learn how to run the ball. Amazing. Trey Ford gets injured, and McLeod Bethel-Thompson comes back in. Oh, wait, they keep winning. And they keep winning, and they keep winning. And now all of a sudden, the Edmonton Elks, who are on a bye this week, are in 4th place in the West Division and 1 point behind the Riders for 3rd. So you would think they'd continue with the hot hand and go with McLeod Bethel-Thompson, right? No. He did leave the game with a bit of an injury, but I don't believe that played into the decision. That immediately after the game last week, Jarius Jackson went and announced that Trey Ford will be starting against the Bombers next week after the bye week. I'm sure we'll talk about, the logistics of how he's going to do in that game more so in next week's preview. But that's shocking, right? To see him announce this 2 weeks basically before the game, who's going to be the starting quarterback, when we are so used to teams being kind of hush-hush on this thing. What do you make of the decision to go back to Trey Ford when Bethel-Thompson has been playing pretty good lately? And what do you make of the decision to tell them now, or tell us now?
I was stunned when Jarius Jackson said, Trey Ford's starting next week that early. You think you'd have a week to think about it and kind of evaluate, and then you would maybe go and say, okay, I think it's going to be Trey Ford this week, maybe at the start of next week, just to say, I think he'll probably start it. That I could see, but when you're way back at the beginning here and Trey Ford is healthy, okay, well, he's going to start next week. That was crazy that he brought out showed his hand that early. If it was Mike O'Shea or Jason Moss, not a chance.
You're going to give them 2 weeks to prepare for that?
Yeah, exactly. My thing was, and then it was kind of weird even about G. Roy Simon having to go and say, oh, yeah, no, Jerry said that's what we're doing. I support him. Really? Why do you have to bring up stuff like that? That was kind of strange. Look, McLeod Bethel-Thompson's been doing a great job. He's been getting me lots of private fantasy league points just to make my quest to win this one a little bit easier on Ryan and Trey. I'm not even counting Mike anymore. Anyways, but now all of a sudden, no, we're not playing them. So honestly, I dropped them this week because I don't know. They really like Trey Ford in Edmonton. I can't blame them. He has been very good for them. He's won games when he's been in there. But just to drop him drop McLeod Bethel-Thompson, and essentially, if I was Macbeth, and he's already proven that sometimes he gets a little bit excited about things in the CFL. Boy, this is a real confidence rattler, I would think, wouldn't it be?
This is bizarro world CFL this year. This league makes no sense, and even less than ever before. I pulled up the CFL passing numbers. Number 1, Bo Levi Mitchell was briefly benched. Number 2, McLeod Bethel Thompson has been now benched twice. Number 3, Zach Collaros has 8 touchdown passes in 13 games. Number 4, Jake Mayer was benched last week. Maybe back in the starting lineup this week. We'll get to that yet. Drew Brown, number 5. Okay. Number 6, Vernon Adams Jr. MOP Pace. Injured, benched. Like, we're in a case now where of this top 6 quarterbacks, like, everybody's either underperformed at some point or been benched, and yet they're still top 6 in quarterbacks in the CFL. It makes no sense. This league is weird, but that's why I love it. And now Trey Ford is starting, and I do think Ford is the better option against that Bombers defense. They struggle against the run. We've seen them struggle against mobile quarterbacks a ton. They're going to shut down the pass most likely either way. I think Ford's the guy you play in that scenario, but I do think you wait till a little bit closer to announce it, because if you go and say, oh yeah, we're not concerned about MBT's injury, I don't think anybody's game planning for Trey Ford until last minute for that week, right? It did cross my mind, is this reverse gamesmanship where they say now, and the Bombers spend the next 2 weeks planning for Trey Ford, and then McLeod Bethel Thompson suddenly actually is the one starting. And if they do that, oh my gosh. If they do that, I'm Trey Ford and I'm packing my suitcase and saying, free agency, see ya, right? Like, especially he gets the chance to play against his brother, Tyrell Ford, in Winnipeg as well. And you tell him he's starting, and then it's all, I don't think this is actually happening. But if they did, to me, that would be the final straw of you're not keeping Trey Ford after this season.
Honestly, one of them is gone. You know it right now. I mean, McLeod Bethel Thompson has a huge contract. He's gone. I can almost guarantee that he's the guy I think that would be gone. But then Trey Ford might be the guy that just doesn't want to sign back with Edmonton. So
we're going to have fun this offseason. We're going to have fun.
Yeah. Edmonton will have Vernon Adams. You watch.
Or Jake Mayer after Vernon Adams goes to Calgary.
This league, man.
This league, I love it. But yeah, so we'll talk more about that one, I think, next week when we get into the preview for that one. But yeah, Trey Ford starting, and we know it now already. And McLeod Bethel Thompson is back to the bench. Let's get to talking about some games that are happening this week, though. And it kicks off only 3 games on the schedule, 1 Friday, 2 on Saturday. And it kicks off with the Toronto Argonauts visiting the BC Lions on Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So a bit of a late game here on Friday night. And what's the top storyline for you in this game?
Well, I think the big one you got to look at is on both sides. And I'm going to be talking lots about quarterbacks this week because, again, we got to find an MOP eventually, and we got to figure out who it is. Nathan Rourke right now has not looked like – there's points where he's looked like Nathan Rourke. There's other points where he's been just almost kind of half looking like Michael Bishop by throwing interceptions and just not looking right. Vernon Adams is now apparently healthy.
Yeah.
Right? So if VA's healthy, do you go on a short leash for Nathan Rourke? What's your thoughts? I mean, myself, I think if Nathan Rourke starts struggling early in this game, and let's say he throws, 2 interceptions right away, 2 quick picks, one goes for a touchdown, I think you put Vernon Adams back in and let Nathan Rourke look at it from the sideline a little bit. What do you think?
I don't actually, because I look at last week, like the stats don't tell the true numbers. I mean, first of all, 22 of 28, that's pretty good completion. That's not a bad completion percentage. I don't know what the percentage is off the top of my head. But 304 yards, 1 touchdown. So he needs to get a little more touchdowns involved through the air, but they are picking some up on the ground. He did rush for 1 on a 1-yard sneak that turned into an 18-yard touchdown run last week. And then you see the 3 interceptions, and you see the 2 interceptions against the Bombers, and you see 2 interceptions against Ottawa. Well, the 3 interceptions this last week, one of them was a bad pick. 2 of them were tipped by receivers or whatever, which you can't really fault them too much on those ones. So the main reason I think you stick with Rourke is I think it opens up way too much of a slippery slope if you give him a short leash and now VA goes in. Like, I think it's a good problem to have in some ways, but it's also a bad problem to have this embarrassment of riches at the quarterback position where how do you get any consistency from anyone if everyone's like, oh, shoot, I missed that pass. Okay, yeah, no, put the other hot hand in, right? Like, I think Rourke has looked better and better every game he's played since coming back, and I think you got to let him cook here a little bit.
Yeah, again, I'm more of a guy that thinks, you know what, pull him for one series. Let him look at it, evaluate what's going on, and see what's happening out there. Because, you know what, maybe Vernon Adams has some other idea going on. And, I mean, you got to remember, VA was real hot with those three receivers now, McInnes, Hollins, and who was the other guy that was always hot with him? Sorry, my brain just had a brain fart.
It was really just those two were the only two.
Yeah, those two. But he had great chemistry with them, right? And you look right now, I mean, Nathan Rourke's gotten a few passes out to McInnes. I think he's gotten a couple to Hollins. He hasn't had much chemistry with Hatcher. Has had a little bit with Eberhardt and a little bit with Catoy. But other than that, again, I think, you know what, Vernon Adams had some good work with those guys. Maybe he's got something that maybe Rourke can pick up and learn from. And it doesn't have to be the whole game. Again, you could just rotate them in. I mean, I've seen 1-2 systems work before, but it's tough.
The most interesting thing that I've noticed a shift with these BC Lions ever since they started struggling, and now they've won 2 straight games against the top 2 teams in the league, Ottawa and Montreal. And the way they've done that is by relying on the run game, which is new for a BC team. William Stanback, 20 carries in each of the last 2 games, 93 yards, 128 yards. Like, he's been the top fantasy running back 2 weeks in a row in Stanback, and that's not something we expected to see coming into this year, and not something we expected early on in the year. But he keeps getting a massive workload, and for all the talk about, oh, his injuries have really brought him down, he's getting up there in age, Stanback's not what he used to be. Yeah, Stanback might be the best running back in the CFL if he's getting the right usage, and that's been a huge difference for this team in the last couple of weeks. I see you've got in the storylines here, David Mackey out for 6 games is notable on the BC side of things. He's been their short yardage quarterback basically lately. I imagine, or near the end zone, he's gotten some looks, gotten a little involved, very involved on special teams. I imagine they are going to be using, I guess, Vernon Adams in that role now that he's healthy more than they were before. But yeah, no David Mackey this week for the BC Lions. One of those unsung heroes.
Yeah. I mean, I was ready to pick him up this week in our private fantasy because he honestly gets a few yards every game and gets a few good runs off. So, I mean, it's crazy to pick up a fullback, but also I needed a Canadian, and I was like, what the heck? I maybe pick him up. But no, honestly, BC's going to miss him. He's a great short yardage guy, and that way there you don't have to get VA or Nathan Rourke going and putting their head down into a pile.
The other big shift lately I've noticed that's clearly made an impact for the BC Lions is signing of Matthew Betts. Their defensive line has been worlds apart better in the past couple of weeks than it was before. And we talked all along, it's not going to matter whether it's Rourke or it's VA out there because the defense has been letting them down. And well, now the defense back-to-back weeks has shut the opposing team down decently well. So, and allowed them to, put up some big points and get the offense back out there on the field much more. So it's been a tale of, an up and down roller coaster of a season for the BC Lions, where so high at the start, low in the middle, and now they're kind of on the upswing as they go in to face the Argos here at home. And the Argos, I don't even know where to begin with them. This team feels like a bit of a mess right now.
Yeah, this team feels like one of those teams that's really taken if they were on the roller coaster that BC was on, it might have fallen off the tracks a little bit here and could be a little bit of a problem and might need to be calling maintenance because Chad Kelly this last game here, I mean, if you want the blueprint for Chad Kelly, get in his kitchen early and get him rattled.
Can I read you the stat line for Chad Kelly from this game?
This is going to be good.
So the game starts off with, first of all, 3 interceptions and 2 pick sixes in the first quarter and a little bit. By halftime, the Ottawa defense had 26 fantasy points. And Chad Kelly at one point was at -4. If you had him as your captain, he was sitting at a solid -8. And we're thinking, like, this is a full-on beatdown. Like, this game's not going to be close. Well, when 3/4 of the game ends up being garbage time, Chad Kelly's final stat line, 36 completions, 56 pass attempts. That's more than some teams throw in 2 games combined. 56 pass attempts, 463 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions for Chad Kelly in this game. He finished, looking at the fantasy numbers, he finished still with 23 fantasy points despite throwing 4 interceptions, which is a crazy stat line. But it's back-to-back weeks now where they've had that slow start to a game. They've tried to climb back into it, and they haven't gotten it done. I'm actually kind of getting concerned about the Toronto Argonauts here because I'm, pulling up the division standings here. They're 6-6 and 3rd in the West or 3rd in the East right now. Ottawa's looking like they're on a roll again, and they're hard to beat. And they're not that high up on the crossover either.
No, not really. I mean, Saskatchewan is 1 win away from that, I think. Edmonton, Calgary are right behind them. So honestly, Toronto's in a little bit of a precarious position here. It might be where they need to start thinking about doing something here. And I talked to this a little bit about just a little bit off the show here before we started. Can we now see and acknowledge that training camp and that preseason is important? Honestly, Nathan Rourke looked shaky when he first got back. Yeah, Chad Kelly here, who didn't get his. Well, no, sorry, he got 1 day of training camp, and then got told to get off the field.
Right.
You had other guys here, such as Keon Hatcher, hasn't looked the same since he came back. Austin Mack injured. Guys that just don't have a lot of training camp, just aren't succeeding in the CFL right now. They got to learn the schemes in early. They need to learn it right away when they get in, and otherwise, it's kind of questionable. And again, Chad Kelly has not looked like an MOP quarterback like he was last year. Last year, he was lighting the league up, and again, like you said last week, not really much different for receivers than he has this year. I don't know what the difference really is. I think it's just the only thing I could see is there was no training camp for Chad Kelly.
Yeah, I think week 1 in the NFL hits that point home as well because nobody plays in the preseason anymore. And week 1 looked awful. Yeah. How many do you take a guess? How the average number of passing yards from quarterbacks in week 1 in the NFL?
250.
200.
Oh.
200, I think I heard the stat, was the average number. And we had so many quarterbacks finish. I mean, Caleb Williams and the Bears won a game with 85 passing yards or something like that.
The only quarterback that I thought looked anything decent was Baker Mayfield. I mean,
yeah, he had
otherwise.
You had the Tennessee Titans, I think it was, coach come out and say that, and I think they played the Bears.
Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, the coach came out after the game and said if we, if we just punted on first down every time, we might have won the football game.
To be honest, they probably would have. Yeah,
they probably would have. They really would have. So yeah, I think and we see this every year. Those first couple weeks are messy. I think you got to start giving these guys more reps. And I mean, that's hard to do in the case where a guy's suspended and not supposed to be around the team or when the guy's off in the NFL. So when we talk about the Rourke versus Kelly situation, that, that plays into that. There's not much you can do to get those reps in ahead of time, but I get what you're saying. And intriguing that this matchup has Kelly versus Rourke when neither was with their teams officially at the start of the season.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, it just, again, you look at it, I think, like I said, training camp is very important, as I've said before. It's showing with both of these quarterbacks a little bit. But I think for some reason, Nathan Rourke, because he was in the NFL and he was getting some, working on the sidelines. I never seen him throw balls at New York. I guess he did get a little bit of a preseason game in Atlanta. But, I mean, he had that little bit extra, I guess, to get him going, I guess. Otherwise, yeah, both of these quarterbacks. Like I said, it's kind of a little bit tough. But probably I'm guessing that one of us is going to probably pick up one of these quarterbacks in fantasy. What are you thinking, Ryan?
Great segue. I'm so proud.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely looking at the quarterbacks in this game in fantasy. I mean, Chad Kelly is tempting. If he's going to, I don't care how many picks you throw. If you're going to throw 56 pass attempts in a game, you're going to put some numbers on the board, as he did last week. So there is some temptation there. But of the two quarterbacks, I do think I lean the direction of Nathan Rourke because he has been getting better and better in recent weeks. He's got 2 straight games of over 300 yards passing on just 30 pass attempts. He's got at least 27 rushing yards a game. He's got back-to-back weeks with rushing touchdowns. And what is he in fantasy? $8,000, $9,000. So
yeah, he's cheap. I know that.
This is actually one of the weeks so far where I'm closest to the cap space, and that's with Rourke at quarterback at 9,000. So I think he is I would lean Rourke over Kelly probably at quarterback in this game, but it's very close between the two for me. A guy I think you have to really consider putting in based on the workload I talked about earlier, though, is William Stanback. Number 1 running back 2 weeks in a row, 29.1, 23.6 fantasy points in his last 2 games. If he's getting 20 carries a game, plus he's getting 3 and 6 and 5 targets, he's getting the workload. And that's what we needed to see from him. The concern for me is always going to be the lack of touchdowns, right? Especially you got Rourke running. David Mackey at least is not poaching them this time around. But if he can get those touchdowns, that makes or breaks your week a little bit, especially against an Argos run defense that is better. Like if we talk about a stat line where Stanback is running, 15 carries for 75 yards and he's not getting a touchdown and maybe he has a catch or 2, that's going to be a 10-point week, which is a little underwhelming. So not fully locking him in. I'm a bit hesitant, but it's hard to ignore his workload. BC's receivers, I've kind of started staying away from him. And I think it's probably still Justin McInnes, but kind of stay away from the receivers there. But on the Toronto side, I look at the 2 receivers that intrigue me the most are Devontae Coxie, number 1 receiver last week, 27 fantasy points, 91 yards and 2 touchdowns for him on 6 catches. Great game there for him. Last year, he was Kelly's go-to guy. This year, I think he's Kelly's go-to guy. And Devaris Daniels is back from injury this week as well. And he had 10 targets in both of his games before that where Kelly was starting. So it seems like those 2 guys are kind of the hot or the favorite targets, although they had spread the ball around a bit. So those are some of the names I think in this game I'm looking at for fantasy. What about you?
I'm looking at Nathan Rourke. I think he's 9,000. He's cheap enough. He's definitely going to get some. He's in the dome. He should be fine there. Although he hadn't played very good in the dome when he first started here. I mean, Winnipeg kind of picked on him a little bit. And I think that was the only game, actually, because the other one was in Victoria. I think I'm going to go with him. I'm going to probably pick up William Stanback this week. I've been hesitating to do it all year, but, boy, he's looked good pretty much the last 3 games, like you just said. And you know what? You don't have David Mackey, like you said, also. So he might be relied upon to try to get you those 2nd, 3rd downs and also run the ball in for touchdowns. So I'm going to go with him for that reason alone. Toronto, I'm tempted to go and play Devaris Daniels because I think he's probably one there's really only 2 receivers that you can really look at really seriously in Toronto. And again, you can look at him, you can look at Devontae Coxie, and then after that, it's kind of a mix. You might get one out of David Unger. You never know.
Yeah.
You might get something else out of one of the other guys. Depends if they're playing Tommy Niels or not. I mean, it's tough. I'm trying to wean myself off of Kadeem Carey because he has not gotten the carries and the screen passes mostly like he used to when Chad Kelly wasn't there. So I'm trying to learn to not play as much with Kadeem Carey, but he'd be tempting this week, especially when it's indoors. So I don't know. I don't think I will, but we'll see what happens during the week.
Yeah, this week Carey actually did get 3 catches for 57 on 4 targets. So that's about around the range that he had been before. But the week before he had no targets at all. Just 5 carries for him. I mean, he was basically put out of the game, right? The running the ball was out the window after the blowout lead there near halftime. So I get what you're saying on Carey. He was so consistent in the first half, but he was consistently above average, but not. I wouldn't put him consistently in the barn burner great category. So I think he's still a valuable potential play if you just need a solid number. But if you're looking for boom or bust, Carey's never to me been that guy that you go for in that category, which makes him interesting to pair sometimes with a more boom or bust guy like a Walter Fletcher or a William Stanback potentially. Let's get into our betting picks for this game. We've got the line at the BC Lions, 4.5 point favorites at home. The over-under is set to 42.5, so a bit of a high over-under, not to be surprised with this game. You want to go first? Where are you going on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the BC Lions. It's at home. It's in the Dome. Toronto's going to have – BC's going to have a loud crowd. They seem to do good at marketing lately and get some extra guys in there. It's a big game. The Lions want to try to maintain that first place and keep over Winnipeg. Maybe move ahead a little bit because this is bye for Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. So it gives them an opportunity to get a little bit ahead. So, yeah, give me the BC Lions to cover the 4.5 and to the over-under. This game could be just a big shootout. I think it could because, again, Chad Kelly seems to aim 50-plus targets with throws last week. I mean, he obviously wants to throw the ball a lot, and it's indoors. So, yeah, I'll go with the over on this one, 52.5, and the BC Lions.
Ditto for me, for all the same reasons. I think this could be a shootout between these teams. Definitely, I'm going to take the Lions to win it, though, as well. I feel like they're more on the upswing, and I just don't trust the Argos right now.
No. The coin on this day tells me that it is going to be the Toronto Argonauts. Bold coin.
I have to say I'm very impressed. We're into week 15, and I don't think I've seen you drop the coin and have to go find it once yet.
I did once, but I kind of turned the screen off quickly.
Movie magic.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say for fantasy picks right now, I have the BC Lions defense in there because if Kelly's going to throw 4 picks, I like that. And I also really like the sacks they've been racking up in the last couple of weeks with Matthew Betts back there. So that might be one of my defensive play of the week.
And Toronto doesn't. And you're right. Toronto doesn't have or not Toronto maybe, but Chad Kelly doesn't handle pressure very, very well.
Yes, we have seen that. We're going to skip the player props this week. They don't load for me anymore for some reason. So we're going to skip those. If you have player props that you want our opinions on, we'll invite you to throw them out in the CFL betting channel in our Discord community. If you throw out the lines from your favorite sports books there and want our opinion, I typically answer if people have questions there. So happy to indulge in that manner, but we're going to skip those here and move on to our second game of the week, which is the Ottawa Redblacks visiting the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who are coming off a bye. Playoff scenarios Ottawa can clinch a playoff spot, I believe, with a win this week?
Yep, they can go no lower than third place if they win this game this weekend, so that's pretty cool. And, they can't get a crossover then if Ottawa's in third. So, big game for Ottawa. They want to probably win this one and clinch up a game really early, actually. I think, we got 5 more weeks left of regular season, I think, or 6 weeks.
5 or 6, something like that, yeah.
Something like that, but, yeah, it would be nice for Ottawa. Again, not been in the playoffs since 2019, I believe. So, yeah, big accomplishment for them if they can lock her up this week.
Yeah, 8-3-1 at this point in the year. Who would have seen that coming? We did think Ottawa was going to get better. I actually was more reserved and said they weren't very much because I didn't trust it. So I've been a bit surprised. And You did put out a poll question this week, as you typically do on Ottawa. You want to talk us through that one a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to kind of figure what their main thing is. What is causing them to be the team that they are this year? Because, boy, this is quite a turnaround, being 8-3 right now. Oh, 8-3-1. Okay, I better count that 1 point, because otherwise Trey might forget to count it for a certain other team. But anyways, I'm just taking a look here at the poll right now, and what I asked was essentially what's making the turnaround here for the Ottawa Redblacks this season. And the results are kind of interesting. Drew Brown, of course, we kind of expected that quite a bit. They finally have a quarterback, I think, that's consistently in there. Like they've had last year, it was Dustin Crum after Jeremiah Mazzoli gets injured. They had, I'm just trying to think, Dan Arbuckle. They've had all sorts of quarterbacks that they thought might be the guy. And for once, Drew Brown seems like he might just be the guy. So Drew Brown's a big part of their change. I think there's more to it. Honestly, that defense with Damon Webb and with a few other pieces that they've brought in this year, boy, like with Pickett and with Webb, that is a defensive secondary, I think, and a defense that has looked really, really good all season. Yeah. Bobby Dice, yes, he's been a big part of this as well. He was there last year as well, but I think Sean Burke, I believe his name is the manager for Ottawa. He's done a very good job of bringing in the talent, and Coach Dice has really brought a good job of getting the talent to believe that this team can do something. And Ottawa fans, be excited. I think you guys got a really good chance of seeing an East Final, or maybe even more.
I didn't know what to vote in your poll, to be honest. Like I still can't pinpoint it for Ottawa. Like Drew Brown, I think has looked solid for a first year starter. But only 11 touchdown passes in 11 games. So he's averaging 1 a game. It's not really a high flying number there. I'll give him credit on the 5 picks only. I think that's kind of, probably upper echelon in the league in terms of ball security among quarterbacks. He's been averaging, let me see, I had the numbers here somewhere. I pulled them up. On the year, averaging 264 yards through the air. That's decent, I guess. He's had some massive games. He's had some underwhelming games. He's had a bit of everything. I wouldn't say he's been that game breaker that's made the difference. And if he is, like, if this is the stat line is, then maybe that's just a knock on what Ottawa has had as their quarterbacks over the last couple of years of just such underwhelming play that this is the mark of beauty, so to say, for the quarterback position. Remember Duck Hodges? Remember when he was down the stretch? Yeah, I don't know why that name just came to mind. I was trying to think of Ottawa's quarterbacks over the last couple of years. But it's the defense is average in a number of stats. They're above average in the rush defense. They're in the middle in terms of pass defense. The special teams has been solid at times. Like nothing stands out to me for Ottawa, and I think their point differential on the year as well kind of speaks to that. And granted, that's a mess across the CFL, but they've won 5 more games than they've lost, and they've only scored 4 more points than they've given up. So this has kind of been, to me, almost like it's like an average, but probably above average football team where everybody else is just meh this year. I don't think Ottawa has stood out as a fantastic team to me. They've just stood out better than everybody else but Montreal.
Yeah, the big thing I think they've done is they went and they embraced the Western road swing, or the Western teams that they've all had to play. I mean, tied Saskatchewan, beat Winnipeg, beat Edmonton, beat Calgary, I believe, and then beat BC. I mean, they've beaten all the West teams. They know and then the belief is there. I think this is a team that just believes in themselves so well that they played really good football. Has it been earth-shattering and just standing out and that we have to talk about them every week? No, but they're 8-3-1. That's a sign of good teams find a way to win football games.
Yep.
And clearly, Ottawa's got a good team here.
Yes, yeah, I'm not denying that, and I think getting the right characters in the locker room, getting the chemistry. They did still bring in some notable pieces this year, but I feel like maybe it was a little more stagnant than it's been in free agency in the past couple of seasons. and that helps develop that chemistry, and things are going to click eventually. Like, you look at all of these teams that have had their struggle patches over the past couple of decades, and like they figure it out eventually. Is it because they have the best talent in the league? Not always. So Ottawa is that team that I think is just playing solid for the most part right now, and that's got them to this point where they could be in the playoffs as of this week, and well on their way, I think, to hosting a home playoff game potentially. And honestly, not out of the question to win the East. They are 3 points back of Montreal for first in the East right now. And somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they play each other twice down the stretch drive here. So this is wide open, the opportunity for Ottawa this season. And I'm happy to see it. I'm happy for their fans, especially all the home wins. Their fans deserve those in Ottawa. Let's talk about the Hamilton side. Hamilton coming off the bye. They beat the Argos before the bye in that wild game there. They're now 3-9. You have to think 6 games left in the season. Season's dwindling a little bit for Hamilton here. What do you think about them coming into this game?
They've been playing better football as of late, and some of their losses even before that. I mean, Bo Levi Mitchell looks like young Bo Levi Mitchell all of a sudden again. Against Toronto there, he was slinging it around looking like old Bo. Not the old man Bo, just old Bo, let's say. There's a difference between the two. All of a sudden you look at a guy like Tim White. I mean, every year we've seen this. At the end of the year, Tim White comes out to play. He did it again this year. He's been having a better run as of late. I think last week, if he had a touchdown and a couple of, I think an over 100-yard game.
2 touchdowns last week and 180 yards for Tim White.
So, yeah, Tim White's back. I would say as of now, he is back. I tried that earlier in the season because he's on my private league, and it didn't work. Now I can say he's back. But, I mean, all of a sudden you do a running back switch, and Bell has looked really good for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The defense, I don't know what Chris Jones did over there, or if Chris Jones did anything. Maybe they lock him in the corner and they say, okay, we better play good because otherwise Chris Jones will be released out of that cage. I don't know what they're doing, but the defense looks reasonably good against teams lately. I mean, a couple interceptions against Chad Kelly, and suddenly this defense looks okay. So I don't know what's going on right in Hamilton lately, but again, glad to see it because it makes just the end of the CFL season more chaotic, and me and Ryan are always for the chaos.
Oh, yeah, it's Chaos Football League. I love it as well. I want Hamilton to still be in the discussion. I think they're quickly falling out of it, and I do not think they have a shot. Sorry, Ticats fans, but I don't think they have the shot of coming back here. But and that brings the interesting question. They've made the shift to Greg Bell as their running back. Like James Butler, healthy scratch on the injury report. Likely not going to be on the depth chart again this week. You have to
see his wisdom teeth are fine.
Just tell us what it is. You put it on the injury report that he's a healthy scratch. Like, stop giving excuses for what's going on with Butler. Like, Bell is in, and Bell has been a good running back, and now there's no reason to take Bell out, regardless if Butler is healthy, because Bell has been playing good football. One Taylor Powell is now off the back at practice, fully available this week, and off the 6-game injured list. So that begs the question. I don't know if I haven't seen any reports definitively one way or another. I feel like Bo is probably the starter after what he did in that game against Toronto. But with the season dwindling here, are you looking at, would you keep going with Bo, or would you shift over to Taylor Powell now that he's healthy again?
Only for the chaos, I'd take Taylor Powell. But honestly, Bo Levi's looked good. He's won you your big rivalry game in Labor Day against the Argos. You got to go with Bo. I mean, he's looked good. He's been throwing the ball like a young Bo Levi Mitchell. I mean, what else can the guy do to keep his job? I mean, I know you probably think the season might be over, and if you do lose this one, it could be pretty well over. But you know what? I think Hamilton's playing a must-win football already. Right now, I think your best option to win a game is still with Bo Levi Mitchell. I mean, Taylor Powell, I think, might be your quarterback of the future. I really do, because he's had some experience in there. He's looked okay when he's played. But, yeah, I think, like I said, Bo Levi's got his chemistry with some receivers like Tim White, I think, and Shamar Bridges. I think, like I said, I think you got to go with Bo Levi Mitchell just because of that. And, again, nothing against Taylor Powell. I think he's probably, again, your quarterback soon. But if you're still in the hunt and you're still thinking you can maybe, I don't know, do an east to west crossover, has that ever been done? I don't think so. That'd be pretty cool. But honestly, yeah, I could see maybe Hamilton, if this is their only hope, is to keep winning games. So as soon as you start losing, yeah, throw Powell in. But till then, Bo.
Yeah, I don't think that east to west crossover is going to happen. I mean, they'd have to win 3 more games to pass the Riders and the Elks right now. But the thing is, there's going to be so many interdivisional games down the stretch that those teams are going to pick up wins. So it's going to be hard to keep pace. But I think these next 2 weeks for Hamilton are crucial. You beat Ottawa this week. You improve to 4-9. We both picked BC to beat Toronto, so Toronto stays at 6-7. Toronto and Hamilton play each other next week in Week 16. The Ticats beat the Argos again there. I think you have the season series, and you're 1 win back of Toronto suddenly for third in the East Division. So this is do or die time for Hamilton right now. I think maybe I lean the same direction. You got to play Bo now. But if we talk about in a week or two, and the lead in the standings is just insurmountable, like impossible to come back from, then yeah, I think Powell you have to start looking at seriously, give him more reps, determine, is this your guy down for next season? Is Tua's baby brother your guy for next season? Is Harrison Frost the guy? Because I don't think Bo Levi Mitchell is the guy for next season in Hamilton.
He's already said that he's going to be going and running a lemonade stand. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Imagine if he gets benched again. Do you think they upgrade the lemonade stand at all, or?
Yeah, they might. I mean, like I said, they might move it into the stadium at least, so that Bo can do it during halftimes and all.
I love it. Let's go to fantasy for this game. What are you looking at from both sides here? Let's go on the Hamilton side.
Yeah, on the Hamilton side, I'm looking at 2 guys here. Well, it's both of their receivers, essentially. Shamar Bridges has had a really good season. I think he's still, I would have to double check, but I think he's still the resident receptions targets guy for the league. I think, but he's had good games. I think he's got to have another big one this week. He's got to have a big one because it's kind of like you said, do or die. And the other one is Tim White. I mean, he's had big game after big game lately again. Bo seems to be comfortable now throwing to him again. I can't see nothing but going up for Tim White. If I'm Ottawa, I'm putting Damon Webb right there and seeing what he can do, because Webb, I think, has got a knack for picking balls lately. So, and Bo does have, even young Bo always used to have that errant throw once every so often. So could be a chance for Ottawa to get some points that way. And it could be a real disaster for Bo if it gets the other way. So Ottawa's D is the one I'm going to be picking this week, because I should have picked them last week when they had 26 points for our private league, and this would have been all over. But no, I had to let Brian and Trey get back into this.
Yeah, got to keep it interesting, right?
Exactly. What do you got for this week, Brian?
Yeah, for the Hamilton side, I think Tim White has to be in the consideration. 134 and 180 yards through the air in his last 2 games. White, to me, brings the interesting mix of, you have some guys that are just like, reception hogs and target hogs, right? Where they're going to get the, 8 catches a game, but they might get, 8 catches for 50 yards, and you get your 13 points that way. And that's a decent point total. I look at a guy like Curly Gittins Jr. like that. Then you have some guys that, they might catch 3 balls, but those 3 balls go for 100 yards. I look at a guy like Tevin Jones, kind of like that. I think Tim White is the perfect mix between them. He's going to have some games where he gets 12 targets, and that's why he gets his big play yardage. He's going to have some games where maybe he only catches a couple of balls, but those happen to go for 50, 60 yards each. And that brings, the biggest boom potential, arguably, out of most receivers in the CFL. So the wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 2 in his last 2 games, 36 fantasy points last week, which How was that only wide receiver 2? Who had more? Who had more fantasy points last week? It was Coxie. Coxie had more. That's impressive to have more than 36. I think Tim White is on the upwards trajectory. I think Shamar Bridges has, he scored 3 points in his last 2 weeks, so I'm kind of trending down a little bit on him. I'm also nervous. I feel like I get the Bridges pick wrong all the time. But Greg Bell is one of my running backs this week, and I think he has to be. He, in the 4 games he has played, has been a running back 3 or better every time. He has scored 15 or more fantasy points in 4 straight games that he has played this season, and he's got that big play potential and gets a lot of receiving work. So I lean towards Bell and Tim White on the Hamilton side. On the Ottawa side, Drew Brown is still a guy I kind of stay away from in fantasy just because we talked about averaging 1 passing touchdown a game. He doesn't rush much, so that takes out a lot of his fantasy potential for me. In terms of receivers, Justin Hardy's going to continue to be your consistent target leader. They are getting Jalen Acklin back this week from injury, I believe, so I'll have to pull him off my IR yet in our private league and figure out what I'm doing with him. He was getting really consistent with 4 straight games of over 12 points before he went down due to injury. Most of that was or at least 1 or 2 of those was with Jeremiah Mazzoli, though, who he has the connection with. So I'm iffy there. So I don't know if I'm leaning heavily on an Ottawa receiver this week. Rhymes has looked better in recent weeks as well, too. But I don't know if I'm pinpointing a single one that I'm super high on. If any, it's probably Hardy just for the workload. I value workload over touchdowns potentially because it's more opportunities. But as of right now, I don't have anybody from Ottawa in the lineup so far this week.
Yeah, the only thing, like I said before, I've got their D. But I mean, and that's just because, again, last week they were so dominant that even it could be the same thing with Hamilton.
Yeah, I agree. Betting picks for this game, we've got Ottawa on the road as the 4-point favorite over the Ticats. I think I'm going to take that. I think Ottawa has just been the better team lately, and I feel like it's not. I feel like if either Hamilton's going to win or it's not going to be close, like one of those two. Like I don't see a scenario where Hamilton loses by a field goal, for example. So, and I think Ottawa's going to win this game. I think they're going to clinch that playoff spot, even though they are a better team at home. I'm going to take Ottawa, and on the over/under on the 50.5. Give me the over on this one as well, because we saw what happened last week with the team getting out to a lead and garbage time, and I think that could potentially happen again this week. What are you taking?
I'm going to actually go the opposite this week. I'm going to go with the Hamilton Tiger Cats winning this game because they're at home. I think they know that this is it, or it's do or die right now for Hamilton, and they know it. So give me the Ticats at home. I think they'll cover the 4. And I think they're going to win it, to be honest with you. And on the points, I think you're right. It's probably going to be the over. Either Ottawa's going to hammer Hamilton into the ground, or Hamilton's going to win this game pretty handedly for some reason. I think it's one or the other, but either way, it gives me a lot of points. So, yeah, give me the over. Give me the Ticats.
And what does the coin say?
The coin is saying... Coin's going with the Hamilton Tiger Cats as well.
All right.
Coin thinks I'm smart, or Coin is just being silly. How do you think I'm going with the Coin being silly? He's on a bye week. I mean, it's a rider coin.
There we go. Oh, we should have not had him make picks then.
Yeah, I shouldn't have had him make picks this week. We had to call him out of the bye week.
All right. Once again, no player props. Check the Discord. Throw them in there if you want to get our thoughts on those. But let's move on to our final game of the week here, which is, as I flip the slide over, the Montreal Alouettes visiting the Calgary Stampeders. Montreal 5.5-point favorites in this one. What is the top storyline that interests you?
Well, I think, you know what? I'm just trying to remember if the Philpos have ever played a game against each other yet. I don't know if they have or not, but it ain't going to happen this year. I can tell you that much for sure. even if both of these teams make the Grey Cup, because apparently as of probably 3-4 hours ago, I got the notification Tyson Philpo is out for the season with his knee injury. It's unfortunate. It sucks, especially because he's been having such a great season for the Alouettes when he was there. It was Cody Fajardo's favorite target by probably quite a bit when he was there at first. Is done for the season. So we could maybe watch the Jalen Philpo show, although that's never happened yet with Calgary, but no Tyson Philpo. And Ryan, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Philpott was on the 6th game. Now he's officially done for the year. Austin Mack is on the 6th game. I mean, that's some heavy hitters down the drain there for the Alouettes. But they are getting a bit of a boost this week because Tyler Sneed is healthy and ready to go for the first time since he got injured in week 1 against Winnipeg. And Kyle Julian Grant is healthy for the first time since week number 5, and he was having a solid start to the year there too. So they get 2 of their receivers back, which I think they needed. They were a little thin at the position last week, I believe. So, or the last couple of weeks, and now you look at a receiving core. I mean, we'll see the depth chart when it comes out on Friday, but you've got Charleston Rambo, you've got Cole Speaker, Kyle Julian Grant, Tyler Sneed. Maybe you throw Reggie White Jr. in there. Like, that's still not looking too bad despite missing your top 2 targets. So this team's got some depth at the position, and that's a big reason why Cody Fajardo is, as we talked about earlier, the front runner for the MOP right now. He's got a talented arsenal in front of him.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Cody Fajardo has said it before. He likes to air the ball out, and this might be a great opportunity to do it when you look at a team like Calgary. Calgary secondary, this is the second year in a row that I've said it. They've got Damari Houston, but that's about it. Their secondary has not been very strong this year. Edmonton exploited it here, I think, 2 weeks in a row, essentially, either with Eugene Lewis or with Tevin Jones there. Yeah, I don't know what to say really about Calgary's defense other than, it hasn't been very impressive this season so far. And I think, Cody Fajardo can really exploit it this week if he really wants to. Did want to talk a little bit about Walter Fletcher as well. Maybe now, because they got their receivers back, can Montreal stop using him as a receiver?
Nope.
Come on. Honestly, it's amazing. Like, if Fletcher and Antwi, I don't know why. I mean, I know Jason Moss is a old quarterback, but seriously, use your running back once at least in a game or a couple times in a game, right?
Yeah, Fletcher, I was going to talk about this when we get to fantasy, but I'll mention it here. Only has 4 games this year with double-digit carries. But in the last 3 weeks, 9 targets, 11 targets, and 8 targets for a running back. I think we should keep this watch going as a segment or as we talk about this team on here every week. Walter Fletcher right now is 23rd in the CFL in receiving yards with 533. And 9th in the CFL in receptions with 57.
It's insane. I mean, like I say, you got a great running back, and you know what? Let's use him as a receiver, I guess.
Yeah, 70 targets for a running back is insane, and he is basically a top tier receiver for this team, and they use him more as a receiver than they do as a running back, and it's effective for them. And that's something we don't see that often in CFL anymore, and I think it's a great way they've been using him. Philpott not coming back this year is a blow, but I am excited for those 2 names to be back in there. I picked up Julian Grant in our private fantasy league this week. I've actually had my eye on Tyler Sneed and was just trying to find room on the IR to add him like 3-4 weeks ago already when he was starting to practice again. Because he had a fantastic year last year. So I think having those 2 will be a nice boost for that offense. And Montreal's trying to get back in the win column also after they kind of had that letdown against the Lions last week where, maybe this impenetrable force is not as impenetrable as we thought. The Lions put up 37 points on them in that game.
Yeah. I mean, you looked earlier in the season, Toronto did the same thing, and then Montreal got angry and went and took their aggressions out on the I think the rest of the league essentially right afterwards. I think the next game they went in and just hammered the Bombers for something to do. You know what? Honestly, I could see the same thing out of the Alouettes. This is a team that they should easily beat. They could just do the same thing, and they've got the defense to do it. I mean, Darnell Sankey, he's been underrated all season. They mention him on, I think, every broadcast, but I mean, not much, and it's amazing what happens. There's an interesting article. I know I'm going a little bit long on Montreal here, but interesting article came out this week talking about Sean Lemon again. One of his teammates, I can't remember the name, but I got Derek Wiggins, was it? Or Dustin Wiggins? Derek Wiggins.
I think it's Derek Wiggin.
Wiggin, okay.
Yeah.
Derek Wiggin says, it's about time that they go and they say, you know what? You can start playing again for Sean Lemon. To me, you broke one of the cardinal rules, buddy. I know it was 3 years ago, and it's been a while and everything else. It's been 9 games, I guess, almost now that he served a suspension for. But you know what? It's one of those things. Like, again, Pete Rose in the in major leagues never touched a baseball bat again. Never got a chance to go in the Hall of Fame. Just was blacklisted in the league. I think the CFL needs to put a lesson out and kind of do the same thing here. What's your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, I think I saw that article too, and I think he was like, they need to take him out of limbo, and I'm like, what limbo? Like, we had this official, he's banned for indefinitely. Like that's pretty clear to me. I don't know. I don't have much more to add on top of what we have already talked about with Sean Lemon over the weeks. I don't think, that allowing him to come back in after betting, was on his team to win, so it's, not it opens up a slippery slope, and I think they put their foot down, and I don't think they're going to look back on that decision that they made. Let's talk about the Calgary side of this game.
Oh, man.
Do we have to? I think we have to. I think we have to talk about the Stampeders.
I swear right now there has to be one of those like Wheel of Fortune circles in Dave Dickinson's office, and he just gives it a big spin like this and sees who's the quarterback for the week.
Sees who the offense for the week is, arguably, right? 2 weeks ago on Labor Day, Jake Maier throws 4 picks. They decide in the rematch, in a crucial game in the standings, to go with Logan Bonner, who's not a rookie. He's been with the team for a couple of years, but this was his first start for them. Last week, they put him in 21 of 36, 284 yards, and 5 interceptions against the Elks for them. They've thrown 9 interceptions in the last 2 games. The Stampeders have only combined for 36 points. Ticats Talk Network in the chat saying, so Matt Schultz will be the starter by the end of the season. If he can get back from being healthy, and I think we all kind of thought that coming into the year that Schultz would be part of the competition, and then he got injured, and Maier played good early in the season, and now it's just not going great. And I didn't think putting Bonner in was the answer. To me, that felt like throwing in the towel in such a crucial game there, and it didn't work out for them. So now they've decided this week, I'm pretty sure, granted, check the depth chart, but it sounds like Jake Maier has been practicing with the number 1 offense once again, and we're back to Mayorville.
And he's going to hand the ball off to...
Spin the wheel, because if you listened to the Canadian Football Countdown episode 266 last week, you would have heard us talk about all of these great things about, they should keep going with Jake Maier at quarterback, and Kylan Hill is looking really good at running back. And then suddenly the depth chart came out, and Logan Bonner was starting. Kylan Hill was off the depth chart. Peyton Logan was the backup, and Dedrick Mills, who left the team for unknown reasons a couple weeks ago, was magically back in as the starter at running back.
Again, I swear there's a big wheel that they spin every week. Okay, what's the combinations this week? Because, it's insane, because you're right, Kyrie. I thought Hill had a great start to his career there. I mean, he was running the ball uphill. He was, as they say in the NFL Network, I've heard a lot, he was running angry. He was nailing guys and hitting guys as hard as he could while running the ball. And I mean, that's what you want to see out of a running back. And I thought, boy, this looks pretty good. Now you're benched. I mean, what? It's insane on Calgary sidelines. And I thought the receiving core was pretty disorganized. Now it's literally everything else but the receiving core almost. Although that's got enough wrinkles in it as well. So, yeah, I don't know what to think of Calgary anymore. I mean, I don't know if they're just doing training camp for the next season already or what it is. I mean, this is almost probably the same thing like we were saying with Hamilton. This has almost got to be in must-win territory for Calgary. They've done good at home. Don't get me wrong. I think the first loss was against – no, they lost the game before. So they've had 2 losses at home.
Yeah.
But overall, they've played very well at home this season. They got to play well again. I know it's the Alouettes, but it's almost to the point where it's got to be must-win for Calgary.
But now you're looking at 4 straight losses for the Stamps here. They've given up almost 80 more points than they scored this season, which, quick glance might be the worst point differential in the CFL, actually even worse than Hamilton so far. So I'm almost...
And the turnover ratio is just, it's atrocious.
I'm almost trending more in Hamilton's direction right now. I like them a little better than I do Calgary at this point in time. And but that being said, Calgary is very much in the mix. They win this week. They're tied with Edmonton again, and they're 1 point back to Saskatchewan as well down the stretch. So they're still in this. They need a strong effort here against Montreal to give them life. And if you go back to earlier this year, they got that in a matchup with the Alouettes, where suddenly Calgary came out and was surprising all of us and looking like they were going to pull off the upset, and then it all crumbled late in the game. So can they repeat that and stick with it? That remains to be seen, but not loving what I'm seeing out of the Stampeders in the last couple weeks. Not a lot of highlights for me to talk about besides Reggie Begelton getting the ball.
Yeah. I mean, other than the fishing highlights as well. I mean, I love watching Reggie Begelton and
was it Tevin Jones?
Tevin Jones and Reggie Begelton having a fish off in the middle of the Labor Day Classic. I mean, that was great. Other than that, that was pretty much the highlight for Calgary. But you're right. I mean, if they win this week, everything's forgiven essentially, because you're right. They're 1 point against behind Saskatchewan for that last playoff spot. That 1 point is going to cause all sorts of chaos and anarchy coming up in the weeks to come follow. I mean, I can't wait for it. But who's some chaos and anarchy things in our fantasy side of things for this week? Or is there any chaos and anarchy on this?
Well, I'll also mention Calgary plays Saskatchewan next week.
Yep.
So if the Stamps win this week, then you have that matchup with Saskatchewan potentially vault ahead of them, while Edmonton plays Winnipeg, which isn't a guarantee for them either. So we could be looking at suddenly by the end of next week, Calgary back in a playoff spot in the West Division. So anything goes here in this crazy wild West in the CFL. But speaking of wild West, sure, we can talk about some fantasy picks here. On the Montreal side, I would consider Fajardo a potential play once again. He's last 2 games, 20 points and 15 points since coming back from injury. So solid numbers, respectable numbers, not game breakers, but those are decent. I do think especially getting a couple of those extra weapons back this week could pay off for Fajardo. I would throw him into my consideration for quarterback. There's only 6 starters to choose from this week, so there's not a ton of options, and I think he's one of my favorites. Last week, I finally bit the bullet. I finally went the direction of Walter Fletcher, even though I had been talking him down because of the lack of running back, carries from him. But the passing volume is just too hard to ignore. He put up 17 points last week, and 15 of that came through the air. And if you're going to continue using Walter Fletcher like that, you're basically slotting in a receiver at the running back position. And I think I do have Walter Fletcher as one of my running back options right now for this week that I'm strongly tempted to put in. At receiver, I'm kind of scared for this week with the 2 big names back in Sneed and Julian Grant. I don't know what that's going to do for the target share for this Alouettes offense. Cole Speaker has been the go-to, I feel like, for Cody Fajardo the past couple of weeks. He finished as the wide receiver 10 last week, the wide receiver 1 the week before. So I do feel like Speaker kind of has that really good connection, but I think I may pivot. I had him in my lineup, but I may pivot from Speaker just based on the depth chart with these two other guys coming back and see how that plays out with the receivers there in Montreal. That's what I'm looking at on the Montreal side. I'll come back to Calgary, but I'll take a break and see what you've got for Montreal.
Yeah, for Montreal, I have two guys. I do have I said I was going to go with Nathan Rourke, but boy, you know what? I just thought about it. Calgary there, I never did like their secondary this year, like I said earlier, and Cody Fajardo likes chucking the ball. So I think I'm going to go with Fajardo this week. That, and also, I have him in private fantasy league, so just to rub it in a little bit more, I'm going to go and put him
so you're going to have a doubly terrible week this week.
Absolutely. If I'm going to have a bad one, I'm going to have a really bad one. Nevertheless, I do like Fajardo. You did have some good points on Walter Fletcher. He was in my roster earlier this week because you're right, he does get a lot of yards everywhere. So I do like it. I think I might put him back in. We'll see what happens later on here. And then who was the other one that I had? Oh, Cole Speaker. I had him on my roster. I had him for the whole till about 20 minutes ago once we started talking about that some guys are back again, like Sneed and like Julian Grant. So if they weren't back, yeah, I would have been. It's a Cole Speaker show. I mean, he's going to be doing a lot of yards and a lot of catches. He's one of the busier guys. I mean, Rambo gets some looks, but it's Speaker mainly. But that being said, I don't think that Speaker is going to be as busy because definitely Fajardo is going to want to get those other two guys accustomed to back into the league and playing. So I think that they're going to get majority of the looks. So Speaker might get some sneaky looks and you never know, might get a touchdown or two. But it's so hard to tell. And there's so many targets with Montreal that I think you take the guy that's throwing the ball instead of the guy that's catching the ball in Montreal this week.
Yeah, in terms of the Calgary side, Reggie Begelton, despite all of the woes of the Stampeders offense, has finished as a top 11 fantasy wide receiver in 5 straight games. In plus targets in 4 of his last 5 games and 90 plus yards in 5 straight. So Begelton's finding a way to get it done. The matchup with Montreal is scary as heck. Right, based on their passing defense. But the BC Lions just hung at 37 points on them last week. So I would be willing to go that direction. And if I can get a guy that's going to, catch the ball 8 times and have 8 opportunities to make a big play, I'm probably putting Begelton in my lineup despite the matchup. I think he's one of the few guys that might be matchup proof that I'm going to go with. So I do like him. That's the only receiver I would consider taking on the Stamps side. And if you want a, gut check time, risky potential pick, I mean, Montreal, I think, shuts down the pass, but is a lot more susceptible to the run. And I would consider taking whichever Calgary running back is to start on the depth chart, which I think is going to be Dedrick Mills. Mills has gotten a little bit of usage through the air. I mean, in his last 3 games, over 30 receiving yards for him. He's had 14 plus carries in, I think, 4 of his last 5 games. So Dedrick Mills, when he's in, is getting the workload there. He's just not putting touchdowns on the board. And this might be somebody that the Stamps have to lean on this week against, because that is how he beat the Alouettes. He run the ball on them, as the BC Lions did with William Stanback last week. If I don't go with the BC defense, Montreal's defense also looking pretty good after 9 picks in 2 games for the Stamps, just saying.
Yeah. No, again, I've got absolutely nobody from the Stampeders. Reggie Begelton would be an option. I think I got him in private, but that's because I kind of have to take him because I don't have enough guys. But other than that, yeah. I mean, Montreal's defense does look pretty optional as well, but I think I'm still sticking with Ottawa's in that one. But, yeah, really the only guy I could see really in Calgary's right now is Reggie Begelton. Unless you're playing me in fantasy, then absolutely take Jake Mayer. If you're playing me, take him. Or Trey Ford, whichever you please.
I'll pick up Jake Mayer in our private fantasy league and start him this week just to mess with you.
I like how everybody dropped the guys they really didn't want after they knew I had a quarterback to play.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that works.
Exactly. That's how it's done. Betting picks on this game. The line is that the Montreal Alouettes are 5.5-point favorites. Let's go to you first on this one. Again, what are you taking?
I mean, Calgary's going to be – this game here is like Hamilton. I think Calgary's going to have to play desperate and try to really win this one because it's at home and it's a game you got to win kind of. But I don't see it happening, honestly. Calgary just has looked very, very weak in the last 3-4 weeks. It just hasn't been pretty. So I'm going to go with the Montreal Alouettes to win this game. Over-under, I'm going to go with the under on this one here. Calgary I don't think is going to get a whole lot of points. Montreal might get some points, but after a while, they may even do a quarterback switch if they're up by big, and then all of a sudden, there won't be as many scored. So go with a crazy thought, but I'm going to go with the under on a 49.5-point thing, which is rare. Most times when you see 49.5, you just instantly say, yeah, go with the over. But nope, I'm going to go with the under. Just see what happens, and Montreal.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Montreal as well. Especially after a loss, like they're going to bounce back in perfect form, I think. Over under 49.5. This is a game I could see going under as well. I could see the Alouettes scoring somewhere around 30 points, and I could see Calgary scoring like 15 or something like that. So I'm going to go with the under and agree with you. So it's not as crazy as you thought. But what does the coin tell us? Is the coin going to pick Calgary?
Well, let's see here. The coin tells us, yes, it picks the Calgary Stampeders.
All right. You do you, coin.
Yeah, you do you, coin. I mean, all the power to you. I mean, you never know. So maybe it has some insider information. I don't know.
One player I want to go back and talk about for fantasy, and this will be, it's out of order. We talked about this game earlier, so this will be a little teaser for somebody who sticks around this late in the podcast. That we didn't talk about is running back Kalen LeBourne of the Ottawa Redblacks is $3,500 this week. Again, they cut Raquel Armstead. They brought in Jamal Morrow. He's injured, so he's not out this week, as Adam rudely found out shortly before the podcast. And Kalen LeBourne actually put up 18.7 fantasy points last week. He had 10 carries for 77 yards, 5 catches for 30. And he's a very cheap discount at running back against the Ticats defense as well, who, we've seen them be in kind of garbage time territory a lot this year where maybe a team's trying to run out the clock. So I'm toying with the idea of throwing him in so I can stack some wide receivers I really like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea. There literally is nobody behind him, I don't think, in this game. So that he's going to get the carries. But while I'm saying that, poor Jamal Morrow. I mean, Goes finally gets healthy enough for him to make the physical, plays one game, is on the injured list. I mean, man, that's got to suck.
Just wrap him up in bubble wrap already.
Exactly. I don't know if you're allowed to do that with players. I mean, you're allowed to wear that cool thing on your head now to protect your head from head concussions. But you're, I don't think allowed to wrap up in bubble wrap and try to make tackles or anything. That'll be next year.
And maybe we do this as like an all CFL weekend type thing. As the bubble soccer, where the big bubbles, and they play bubble soccer and they do like a hamster ball race as part of the game day experience at the Bomber games. Bubble football. You got to thread the needle as the quarterback into the small hole in the bubble for the guy to catch. I don't know how you get down by contact, but I'm not the logistics guy. I'm the idea guy. Somebody else figure those out.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that'd be great. I mean, that should be an Olympic sport.
There we go. Yes. All right, let's get into wrapping things up. Again, only 3 games to talk about this week. Still found a way to go an hour and a half as we normally do because we had a lot of news to talk about. And frankly, I was just having a fun time. We will be back again next week, week 16 preview. 4 games to talk about that week. We already kind of teased it, a couple big matchups potentially standings-wise to talk about some rivalry games there. So we'll do major storylines, fantasy players to watch, and betting picks for each of those as well. In the meantime, you can follow us on social media on Twitter or X at CF Countdown Pod, Facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod there as well. We've got Trey's power rankings every week. We've got Adam's poll questions. We've got links to all the episodes and stuff there as well. You can also check out all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network at CF Pod Network on Twitter, and the Alternative Football Network at the official AFN on Twitter or alternativefootballnetwork.com. Check out the Discord. Once again, linked in the episode description. Free to join us over there. Come talk CFL, come talk NFL, CFL fantasy, CFL betting, game day chats, general CFL chatter. You name it, we've got it. Come check it out. Free to join. Link is in the episode description. Adam, what else you got going on right now? And where can people find it?
Yeah, mostly it's all farming right now, trying to get the stuff done and try to get the harvest in. Getting closer, almost on the home stretch. You can follow me at Adam Stewart1 if you want all that cool stuff. Best bet, though, if you want to see a bunch of farming pictures, is go to Farmer in Sask. Definitely doing a lot of that, posting there. A lot of time I'll try to post on X as well, or Twitter, or whatever Elon or Master calls it nowadays over there on that system. But nevertheless, yeah, you can follow me all on that, and I'll have some CFL chatter. I know I'm going to be probably bragging right away to Trey and asking him how his game went here in the Thursday Nighter. Yeah, join me in there if you want to go and see Trey probably lose a gasket.
On the farming note, I was reading a book about farming, a little picture book about farming today, and in the combine, working on the wheat was a man in a green jacket, and I said, "Hey, that's Adam."
Absolutely. As long as the combine wasn't green, because that'd be weird.
I think it was blue. Teaching them young.
Never heard of a blue combine. Yeah,
oh,
okay.
Interesting. I think it was. I don't know. It's like a toddler's picture book. So let's not get too stuck on the colors of the combine.
This gotta be realistic, all darn it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us here this evening. A bit of a quieter night on the chat, but that's all right. We had some fun here, Adam and I, and whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we appreciate if you do all the fun things like comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends. Help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. And on behalf of Adam, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.